Hey guys, welcome back to SCI. In today's video, I'm going to talk about why you may want to reconsider your decision to whether come to study or migrate to Canada. And I believe this is a topic that has been largely ignored by a lot of people. And as part of our social responsibilities, it's very important that we let people know of both the good and the bad to help people make a decision whether this is a good thing to do or if this is something they would want to consider. So if this is your first time on the channel, I say please hit the like and subscribe button. And if you want to hear more about this, just wait until the end of the video. You're going to catch everything. I'm going to give you real reasons why you may want to reconsider your decision to relocate to Canada. All right, stay tuned. Housing is ridiculous. It's difficult to find a house. We are currently experiencing a housing shortage, making it very difficult for people to find affordable accommodation to rent, talk less of buying a property. Now, I've seen a posting recently in one of the cities where a landlord is trying to take advantage of international students by putting, student beds, single mattresses in a room to accommodate six people. And this is clearly unacceptable, but it is an indication of the current problem we're experiencing in the country with regards to housing shortage. Tuition is also ridiculously expensive. The average international student will pay 3 times to 4 times more than local students. And average tuition fees for most parts of Canada will range about $17,000 upwards for international students. And this could be as low as $4,500 for local students. The weather is terrible. One thing people don't realize, especially if you're coming from a tropical country and haven't seen snow before, is you'll be yearning for this. And for a lot of people, including myself, it was a dream to see the snow. But it gets too much in Canada. The weather can range anywhere from minus 5 degrees Celsius to minus 45 degrees Celsius in winter. And that's not all. It lasts for about 6 months. All right. We have a very short summer. The summer here in Canada is for about 3 months. So from June, July, August, and summer is done. Move into September, and that is fall. It starts getting cold all over again. Plus, there's not a whole lot you can do in the winter. So besides coming out to see the snow for the first time and maybe doing a couple winter activities, it can get a bit depressing because besides class and work, there's not much you can do outside. So a lot of people get stuck in the rooms. A lot of people find it really depressing in the winter. Taxes are also very high in Canada. I find that a lot of places, like in Ontario, you could be paying anywhere from 35% of your total annual income in taxes, and this is not a fixed percentage. It really depends on how much income you're making. So the tax system is such that the more you make, the more you pay in taxes, right? And this is largely because the Canadian government provides free healthcare. Is the Canadian dream real? For a lot of people, the answer is yes. And to some people, the answer is no, right? I hear people talk all the time about how there are so many jobs in Canada, but what people fail to talk about or consider is, are those jobs paying enough good wages to keep people in that industry, right? A typical example, and this is not to target any industry in particular or single out any industry in particular, but lately I've heard a lot of noise about the trucking industry. And the question I ask is, are the salaries, real salaries, being paid good enough to make people want to consider trucking as a career, right? So it is super important that when you're telling people about opportunities you think are available, you should also provide them with information on what the salaries or compensations are and how people can find themselves in those positions. What skill set do they need? And that's one thing we also don't talk about a lot, the skill set. This is very important. People come in thinking they could find work in all sorts of areas. But yes, there are some areas that have restrictions. You would have to have a Canadian education or at least have your credentials assessed or your skills have to be at similar level to the Canadian, right? So for example, we've seen a lot of doctors come into the country doctors and nurses coming to the country and ending up, doing odd jobs. This is rather unfortunate, and I guess this is because the system is so strict that some trades cannot directly translate to a Canadian equivalent. And I'm sure there's a whole topic being discussed about this to see how this could be worked out. But this is something you really want to consider and do your research if the skills you have is going to be a relevant skill to earn you that dream job you're thinking of in Canada.
Most people are rather surprised to hear about racism in Canada, and it's simply because the topic doesn't get enough public discussion. In fact, racism happens daily in healthcare, education, housing, employment, and every other aspect of life you can think of. If you speak to the indigenous people and people from other minority groups, you'll hear their account of racism. It mostly happens in a subtle manner where a lot of people don't realize they're being discriminated against until it's too late. Some have also experienced it openly and aggressively. I've experienced it in all forms, and at one point, it broke me down for a few minutes, but I was able to shake it off and made a promise to myself that never again will I allow someone's ignorance, someone's words, to have power over me, and I will do everything within my civil means to make sure the aggressor regrets it so they don't repeat it to someone else in the future. We must all stand up against this despicable act.
A lot of people aren't able to find family doctors. And if you remember, I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of foreign trained nurses and doctors that come into the country that aren't able to find work. This is also a part of the reasons why we don't have enough healthcare professionals to serve the population. So this has resulted in long wait times at the hospital emergency for a lot of people and in a lot of places, right? So if you go to the rural areas, it might not be much of a problem, but if you find yourself in the metro areas like Toronto or Vancouver, you're going to deal with long wait times at the hospital due to the shortage of healthcare staff. And as always, I hope you found today's video useful. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. See you again in my next video.